Good morning. This election season, of course, is all about local races and who will make the big decisions in the cities and towns where we live. Early voting gets underway a week from tomorrow, and there are some voter registration deadlines coming up later this week. Here to talk about everything related to the 2025 election is Connecticut's Secretary of the State, Stephanie Thomas. Secretary Thomas, thank you for being with us.
Happy to be here.
So you're getting into the busy time of year
Yes.
for a Secretary of the State.
Yeah.
This is, and we've talked about this before, everyone gets all amped up for presidential elections. But these municipal elections are what really affects what happens in our lives.
Think about the things people complain about most. Property taxes, schools, sound ordinances. These are all things decided at the local level, but too few people get involved.
And so I know historically about a third of registered voters come out in these municipal elections. And I'm sure every year you're trying to, be out there with your megaphone saying, come vote.
We try. When you think about it, 3 out of 10 voters in your town may be making these decisions. In some towns in Connecticut, 1 in 10. Everyone needs to turn out this November.
Now, obviously, we have some things that are different from past elections, and the big one is early voting. And people might have thought, oh, geez, that's probably just for presidential election. But you can take advantage of that for the municipals as well.
Absolutely. Early voting is a great new reform for Connecticut. We have 2 weeks starting October 20th through November 2nd. So there's almost no excuse for anyone to be too busy to make it to the polls.
And for people who may not have taken advantage of it when it was offered before, it's just like when you vote on election day, except maybe just a little less traffic and busyness.
It's very similar, but it's in-person voting, and a lot of people like to see their ballot go into the machine. The only difference is you put your ballot into a secure envelope, and that's what gets fed into the machine, but they aren't counted or opened until election day. But you can get all the details about early voting on our website, myvote.ct.gov.
And that'll tell you where the early voting is in your town, because it might not be every polling place, right?
Correct. It's not at every polling place. It'll be at an early voting location in most towns, your town hall.
And so you can take advantage of that, like you said, from the 20th all the way till November 2nd, and look up the hours on myvote.ct.gov and head over there.
Yeah, but I'll emphasize, because people get this wrong, it includes 2 Saturdays, 2 Sundays, and also 2 late nights until 8 p.m. So there really is no excuse.
All right, it's good information. You talked about the votes going into the machines. The machines are also part of the story this year, some new tabulators.
Yes, new tabulators. Many people use them for town referenda around Connecticut, but every voter will get a chance to see the new tabulators in action on Tuesday, November 4th, Election Day. What I love about them, they have bigger screens, so when you feed your ballot in, you get a message right then and there saying your vote has been counted. So I think a lot of people will take comfort.
I know one of the things that you deal with as Secretary of the State is there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there about voting, and talking about those new tabulators, people thinking that outside actors are somehow coming in and changing who's on the zoning board in their local town, but that's just not possible, right?
It's not possible. Trust the process. Our machines, and most machines in the country actually, are not connected to the internet. There is no way for someone to hack into them. But I always say, talk to your registrar if you have concerns. There's so much testing that happens and so many procedures. I think if you have an in-depth conversation with them, it'll put your fears to rest.
Let's talk about absentee ballots, because we all remember voting in the last election cycle on changes to absentee ballots. But it's not quite done yet.
It's not that easy. So the public voted that the legislature is authorized to change the law, but a bill was not decided in this session. So nothing has changed about absentee voting in Connecticut yet.
And so what the change was going to be no excuse absentee.
Exactly.
You're still permitted to do it, but for the reasons that you always could.
For all the reasons you always could, exactly.
And I know one of those would be if you're just not going to be in town on election day.
Yeah, if you're out of town, sickness or physical disability, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own. You could be a caregiver for someone you can't leave, for example. If you're a poll worker in another town other than yours, and also if you're a member of the armed services. But again, you can get all those reasons on myvote.ct.gov.
And you can contact your local registrar for a ballot?
Absolutely.
Now, the
Town clerk.
your
Sorry.
town clerk for a ballot. What there has been, unfortunately, there's been some scandalous news about absentee ballots, and I know there's an advertising campaign that your office is putting in place so people know the rules, right? Tell me about that.
As you know, in Bridgeport, there have been some news stories and some arrests regarding absentee ballot fraud here in Connecticut. So we have already worked with the legislature to pass a half dozen laws to close some of these loopholes. But we this year got permission to do a public education campaign because what we found is that our election monitor can't be everywhere. We need people out there as whistleblowers protecting their own vulnerable family members. So radio, television, streaming, postcard mailer, bus ads. It's all being done right now.
And I know there's a lot of ways you can make a report, but I think the easiest might just be the email address, elections@ct.gov. If you see something, say something. Yeah. Tell me about sample ballots. I know between now and Election Day, they'll be posted on your website. It might be more important in a municipal cycle. A lot of people are going to go recognize the statewide or the national names. Maybe you want to do some research. You'll have them up there.
It's a great research. We'll have them up by next week for sure. You can check your town. More even importantly than the positions and candidates on the ballot, you want to find out if there's a question on your ballot. Your town might have a local issue like a charter revision, and most people get to the polls and they read 2 paragraphs and they have no idea what it's talking about. So do your research in advance.
So by next week, they'll be on your website. Only about 30 seconds left. What will you be most interested in watching on Election Day? I know it's a busy day for you, but what are you going to be keeping an eye on?
I'm going to be keeping an eye, even before Election Day, on early voting turnout. This is only the second year. 40% of voters used it last year. So I'm curious to see if it's as popular so we can look at laws for next session.
And it's something that happens in so many other places in the country.
Absolutely.
Connecticut, sort of a late adopter to
We're
this.
very late.
But it was popular, like you said, 40%.
Was. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here. And of course, we'll be covering it all on November 4th as you will. Your office is putting out those results. Secretary of the State, Stephanie Thomas, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Don't forget to vote.
There you go. Good last advice.